The purpose of drafting is to create and reproduce accurate geometry. In this session, we're going to use our line command to draft some line work that has geometric value. I'm going to come up to my open icon, and we'll click, and when the select file dialog comes up, I'm going to select the number 2 drawing within the chapter 3 drawing fundamentals folder. And we'll click open to bring him up on screen. If I look to the upper right hand corner, we can see I've got some geometry that we're going to replicate using the line command. Now before we get started, I want to verify that our mode settings are similar. Let's take a look at the bottom of the screen and notice that all of my mode settings are currently turned off or are in the up position, with the exception of model. Let's launch the line command. I'm going to come over to my draw toolbar and I'm going to click on the line icon. Then I'm going to pick a point on screen. And as I pull away, once again, I get the rubber band effect. Let's try and create some line work that's accurate. I'm going to do that by locking my ortho mode. So while I'm in this command, I'm going to come down and I'm going to click on my ortho button to turn ortho on. And notice as I move my cursor, AutoCAD is locking to 90-degree angles. This is kind of like drafting with a T-square or a triangle. Now that we're locked to 90-degree increments, let's try and create a quick square. So I'm going to pull to the right. I'm going to type in 10 and hit enter. We can pull down and type 10 and hit enter. Pull to the left, type 10 and hit enter. And then lastly, I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to close it. I'm just going to pull up and type 10 and hit enter. When the square's done, if I want to get out of the line command, I'm going to right click and select enter. Now that we understand how the ortho mode works, let's recreate this geometry we see in the corner of the sandbox. I'm going to relaunch my line command. So I'm going to come over and click the line icon. We'll pick a point on screen and we'll work our way around this geometry going clockwise. So let me pull up. I'm going to type 9. We'll pull to the right and type 15. Pull down and type 7. We'll pull to the left and type 8. Don't forget at any point if you make a mistake, you can always use the sub option undo to back up. So if I'm pulling down and I accidentally type in 7, whoops, I didn't mean to do that, I can always right click, select undo to back up one segment. Let's pull down and type 2. And then I'm going to finish the shape up. I'm just going to right click and select close. Now the ortho mode is nice, but on occasion 90-degree increments aren't specific enough. Sometimes I'd like to create my geometry and have my angles lock to smaller increments. So let me pan this drawing over to the side. I happen to have a second sandbox. I have another drawing in the upper right hand corner. In this sandbox, we're going to learn how to use the polar mode. Let me come over and launch my line command. I'm going to come over to the draw toolbar and click on line. We'll pick a point on screen, and we can see that the ortho happens to be turned on. Let's use the polar mode. I'm going to come down and click on my polar button. This will turn on my polar mode, otherwise known as polar tracking. When I click this button, watch the ortho button. As soon as I turn polar on, ortho turns off. Ortho and polar are like an either-or proposition. I can have one running or the other. Now that polar is on, and I'm in the line command, notice if I pull to the right, I get a ray. This ray shows me that I'm locking on that particular angle. If I pull down, I can see that I'm locking to a 90-degree angle going down, to the left, and up. So right now, polar essentially is working the exact same way as ortho. Well, the nice thing about polar is that I can add angles if I wish. Let's take and add some 45-degree angles to our polar tracking. If I come down over the polar button and right-click, I can select Settings, and from here, in the increment angle, I can see that polar happens to be set to 90 degrees. If I click the drop-down, I can set additional angular snaps I'd like to have. Let's set it at 45, and click OK. I am still in the line command. Notice now, as I move my cursor, AutoCAD is snapping to 45-degree increments. Let's try and draw a square, and we'll try and draw it rotated to a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to pull to the upper right, and I'm going to type 10 and hit enter. Let's pull down in the lower right-hand corner. We'll pull in a southeast direction and type 10. Let's pull in the southwest and type 10. And then finally, I'm going to close it. I'm just going to right-click and select close. So the polar tracking will allow us to snap to additional angles that are more specific than 90 degrees. Now that we know how to use polar, let's try and recreate this geometry we see in the upper right. I'm going to launch my line command. Specify first point. I will pick a point on screen, and I'm just going to pull up and type 10. I will pull my cursor to the right and type 5. Let's pull on the 45-degree angle and type 3. If you're an architect, this is how you can create bay windows. Let me type 3. We'll pull down and type 3. We'll pull over and type 5. Polar and ortho allow us to draft very quickly. Once again, be careful. Make sure that when you type in your distance, when you're using your direct distance entry, make sure that the ray is visible on screen. If I happen to be off a little bit and type 10, I did draw a line segment 10 units long, but it's not the correct angle. Let me right-click and undo to back up one segment. Let's pull down and type 10. And then lastly, I'm going to right-click and select Close. As you can see, when combining the line command with the ortho and polar modes, we can quickly create accurate geometry on our screen.